Thank you for coming today. We just have a topic that we do. It's been fun because we're not the experts here, but we say, hey, come partner with us. We're passionate about the journey, learning what it is to stay healthy, talk about some of these issues that people don't really want to talk about. They want to taboo some of these things. So my name is Shelly Ricketts. Today we get to talk about heart diseases. You might think, well, I don't have any problems. I tell our daughter this, I tell Tom this. If you don't do anything, change your oil, okay? Change your oil in your car. If you don't change your spark plugs, but change your oil in your car. And I think that's kind of the heart. We don't see what the heart's going on until something major happens. It's super important that we should actually be taking that a little bit more serious, because somebody dies every 37 seconds of cardiovascular disease. That's the number one killer in our country, is heart disease. So that's pretty sad. I'm just going to go over a few statistics on what types of heart diseases that there are, and then I'm going to pass it off over to Julie here. We have really 7 different heart diseases. There's coronary artery disease, which that's the most common one. It's hardening of the arteries. It's when your arteries are in your heart, they get narrower, they get blocked. Again, it causes heart attack or angina. So that's the number one. The number 2 is you could have heart arrhythmias. It's a disorder where the heart either beats too slow, it beats too fast, or it has a disorganized heartbeat. There's millions of people that experience this. I know my mom has that issue and she's had it for years. It disrupts the blood flow of the heart. Structural heart disease. It refers to abnormalities of the heart, the valves, the walls, the muscles. It can either be present at birth or it can come later on in life, wear and tear on your heart. People living with this disease usually need their family to support them through all ages of life. We have heart failure, and that's when the heart, it becomes weakened or damaged, maybe usually from a heart attack or from high blood pressure. Pericardial disease, it's actually an inflammation of the thin tissue sac that surrounds the heart. Cardiomyopathy, which is a heart muscle disease, that's usually inherited. And then it's where the muscle, it's hard for the heart to deliver blood actually to the body. And then that can lead on into a heart disease, congenital heart disease, which is really a type of birth defect. The 7 different types of heart diseases. So we have to really take this serious. That's why we're on this journey of just educating people and just saying, let's get back to the basics. I'm going to let Julie talk more about it. Julie she's a school teacher, and I just applaud her for number 1, because she's a rock star in my opinion, because she has to put up with all these kids, and I just want to give them all a spanking. That would be me. She's amazing, and she's a yogi. And I can't even say, well, good for her, because she's so much younger than me, because that's not really the case. Julie and I are 55. Okay, so you're only 1 year behind me. I can't do those flip dogs, but she's really passionate about exercise and the heart. Take it away, Julie.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Shelly. I think it's pretty cool that I get to talk about heart health because, well, Shelly alluded to, like, I'm a high school teacher now, but I haven't always been. So I grew up with like a mom who was really into gardening and teas and cooking organically, trying to eat from the earth. And she was a teacher too. She was an earth science teacher. So everywhere we went, it was what we called it the Von Stark family adventure, because we'd learn about plants and trees and what you should eat and roots you could eat. And it was hilarious, actually. Part of my mom's, and then it spilled onto me, is our love of and want to know more about heart health, especially. My grandfather died at the age of 43 of a massive heart attack when my mom was 18, so I never got to meet him. And then all of my mother's brothers have had heart attacks. And my uncle Pat, who was only 8 years older than me and more like my brother, he died of a massive heart attack at 55. And that's how old I am. The heart has always been something that I've been passionate about, as well as health. I was in the military for 23 years. My real job really was a massage therapist. And I had that business for 20 some years until it just started to, my body just wasn't able to keep up with it. But that was before I learned about all these amazing supplements. And so I switched gears to become a high school teacher. So now my background, I also have a degree in business. So I ended up teaching business and CTE classes, but I also teach a mindfulness class. It's really brought all of my strange background to turn on and to what I'm going to talk about today. It's funny too, because like my background, like I'm Croatian. So our whole family would always like, eat, honey, eat, eat. And so we were always around foods and different foods. And I mean, food is important, but food was a pretty big topic in our family, especially plants and gardening. What a miracle it is that our heart beats and we don't even have to think about it. Like our heart is, it just flat out is a miracle. It's kind of interesting to me because our blood circulates through our entire body 3 times per minute. That travels over 12,000 miles in 24 hours. And then like an average, they say about 35 billion heartbeats. And we have over 100,000 miles of arteries. I'm like, what? How does that all happen? And most of us, we don't even think about it, except for like when we're nervous or we get scared and then we can feel our heartbeat. It feels like otherwise it's like we just kind of take my heartbeat for granted. So they say that in 2020, there was more than 532 million cases of CVD, which stands for cardiovascular disease. And I thought it was like pretty mind blowing that it's up 26% in the last 10 years. And so really when we talk about the word disease, I like to break it apart. It's like dis-ease. So our body is not at ease. And I run with a group of women. I have like a prayer circle of women. And one of the things we always say is, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you feel safe and at ease. So dis-ease is anything that aren't quite right. Heart disease is also known as cardiovascular disease, and it is still the leading cause of death in the US. And the more research I did, there's so many types of cardiovascular disease. Like a lot of things fall under that umbrella. It's not just like older people that have cardiovascular disease or die of it. I mean, I think we've all heard of different things in the news over the years. Some kid was out playing basketball and had a massive heart attack, so it's not just in older people. It takes a long time, and that's really why it's called the silent killer. Oftentimes there's no like symptoms until you have a diagnosis. And especially in women, the first symptom is often death. It's from a massive heart attack or a stroke. So they call that being unsymptomatic. There just really isn't a lot of symptoms for it. All I wanted to focus on here is that high blood pressure is the leading cause of cardiovascular disease. And so since high blood pressure is something that we can work towards controlling, high cholesterol, being overweight, diabetes, smoking, and genetics. Many of these we have a fair amount of control over, or at least impact. I know people say, well, I can't control my genetics, but I've studied epigenetics just enough to be dangerous. So I know that there are things that we can literally do to alter the things that we are predisposed to. So if we know some of our family history and we know we have some of these predispositions to certain genetic traits or defect or risk factors, that is a great place to start. And I always say awareness is the first step, and then we can go from there. Just because everybody in my family has died of heart attacks doesn't mean that I'm headed for that same road either. It's just as good for me to be aware and to do some things to prevent. Not smoking is one of those huge things that we can control, even though addiction is, it's a very difficult, I'm not saying it's easy, but smoking is something that we can more or less choose to do or not with some help. Paying attention to our weight, having our cholesterol checked. Some people naturally also have a predisposition to high cholesterol. So if that is something that runs in our families, that's another thing for us just to be aware of and to have checked. I used to be quite the avid runner, and yes, I am a yogi, but cholesterol is one of those things that we have high and low cholesterol. You can raise the good cholesterol, the low LDLs in your body through exercise. When I was running like a crazy person doing marathons, my LDL was really, really high. And so that's good cholesterol in our bodies. A couple things about that to me I found really troubling about high blood pressure. It says 1 in 3 adults have high blood pressure and only about half of them have it under control. That is one of those things that can kind of sneak up on us if we aren't aware of it. Checking your blood pressure, being aware of what it is, learning ways to help your blood pressure balanced. Sometimes people have low blood pressure too, and we'll talk about that a little bit. They also talked about how 2020 was the deadliest year in US history, primarily because of COVID, although those numbers are kind of skewed, but the data still showed that it was the biggest increase in deaths for cardiovascular disease and diabetes in the last 20 years. So to me, it's kind of like, wow, with all the advances in technology and we're still dying. It's kind of like, well, why is that? And one of the things we talk about within our health community is how far away we've come from the garden. And so much of what we're eating is cooked in processed foods. And some of what we're eating is GMO. And sometimes we aren't even aware of that. And when things are genetically modified or a lot of the supplements people take are synthetics. Those are actually not good for our bodies because our bodies can't recognize that and don't really even know what to do with it. And sometimes in high doses, it can actually do more damage than good. The other thing too is like all of our environmental toxins that we have. Our environment is hurting our poor Mother Earth. The more we can do to help her out. And then the stress, and really in America, we have such a lifestyle pace that is so hard to keep up with. Those are, to me, some of the things that I think really contribute to that increase in the last 20 years. Some of the health threats from having high blood pressure, it's really not to be taken lightly because there's so many things that can fall out. Obviously, stroke and heart attack and heart failure, we think about those things, but we can start having vision loss and start having kidney disease and kidney failure and sexual dysfunction too. I have spent a fair amount of time like with acupuncturists, and there's a 5-element acupuncture approach that really believes that all of our organs, like there's cycles, that how all of our organs work together. And if one is out of balance, it's not nourishing the next. There's a balance that needs to occur. So it's like a homeostasis or balance in our body. Everything is connected. So when we have our body working optimally, then all of our organs are working. If one of them is sick, then the rest of them are not going to be as healthy as they could be. So what can we do? Prevention. I have a picture of the outdoors because for me, that's where I find the most peace. Some of the things are just getting outside, breathing deeply, cultivating gratitude, obviously eat more plants, and we'll talk about that too, and moving our body. And it doesn't mean we have to be a runner or go crazy. It just means moving your body. That could be, my mom would always put on music and we would dance. I mean, that it can be anything that makes your heart happy. Walk outside, just something where we're moving our body. And I feel like outside, it makes it easier to cultivate that heart of gratitude. And we're all women here, so we know we feel very strongly with our hearts. Most women have that more of a lenience towards being empathic and our compassion. So the more we can nurture and care for our hearts, the better we can be for other people. Some supplements that are natural with pure plants that have helped a lot of people in an amazing way. To me, it feels like a little piece of miracle with this too. So the first thing I want to talk about is Boost. I just got to say, this is amazing. I know this is a girl's talk, but my son, he is always like, Mom, I need more Boost. Mom, can I fill up my old bottle? Mom, can I have more Boost? So Boost is really amazing. It's based on 1998 Nobel Prize winning science, which I find amazing. It's a nitric oxide formula. And people are like, what is that? Like nitric oxide? That sounds horrible. It's literally a gas that's created within the walls of our arteries. And it does all these things. It says promotes optimal health, increases blood flow, and improves performance. So that improves performance piece is the part that my son likes because he's an avid weightlifter and he just feels so much better taking Boost. So I kind of like this picture, and it shows over the smaller, more constricted, when you have low nitric oxide in your body, how our blood vessels and capillaries and everything are smaller and more constricted. So nitric oxide, it basically signals or tells our arteries to open up and dilate so that we can have increased blood flow. And then obviously, because our blood on our hemoglobin, those little things in there, carry oxygen, we have more oxygen to all of the organs in our body, which to me is a brilliant, especially as I'm post-menopause, having more oxygen to my brain is really a great thing. I mean, more oxygen to our limbs and just oxygen everywhere in our body. And because we have better blood flow, that also means that we have the ability to absorb nutrients better in our body because there's more area, more surface area for our bodies to be able to absorb the nutrients from the foods that we're eating. So it's kind of a huge win-win. Boost is best known for energy, stamina, circulatory health, and heart health. And it's really interesting because I really dig the heart. One of the things it talked about is it's better than Starbucks.